Hi, this is an introductory class for LS501. Today we're going to talk about what is a collection and how the idea of collection development has evolved through history. First, what is a collection? And this is very important because here in our context, in the context of this class, we are referring to library collections. So the standard definition is that a collection is the total accumulation of books and other materials owned by a library, cataloged and arranged for ease of access, often consisting of several smaller collections: reference, circulating books, serials, government documents, rare books, special collections. The process of building a library collection over an extended period of time is called collection development, and it is synonymous with holdings. What it is important here is that, and I think that's the key, is that of course is books and other materials, electronic materials, serials, etc., but they are cataloged and arranged in a special way. Okay, so they have gone through the technical services. So it's not just books and books together. They are cataloged and arranged for ease of access, and they are usually divided by collections. Now, from what is a collection, we can go and talk about what is collection development. And collection development is the process of systematically building library collections to serve study, teaching, research, and recreational and other needs of library users. Of course, this is a more modern definition because, as we're going to see a little bit later in terms of historical development of library collection, the idea of building a library collection changed. Okay. So, secondly, the process of planning and building a useful and balanced collection of library materials over a period of years based on an ongoing assessment of the information needs of the library's clientele. So how do we develop our collection? Well, it's based on the library's patrons. It's based on the information needs of the library patrons. Of course, there are other tools such as analysis of usage statistics and demographic projections, normally constrained by budgetary limitation. And this is very true today, that we are constrained by budgetary limitations, and it is everly increasing the pressure of not having enough resources to develop the collection that we need to serve our patrons. That's why today, and thankfully, I guess, we can use electronic resources of public access through the internet. Of course, in the past, we didn't have that. Now, sometimes when I talk about libraries, I don't talk about anymore about small libraries, because if we compare today's libraries with the access of information that we have today with 30 or 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago, I mean, we have a very large collection of information. The problem is, or we have access to a very large quantity of information. The problem is, do we call the information that is in the internet a library collection? Well, maybe not, because it hasn't gone through through the technical process of the library. Okay, so even though we have access to a large quantities of information, are they part of the library collection? In some ways they are, in other ways they aren't. If we follow the traditional definition of what a collection is, they aren't, okay? Because they are not supported in our OPAC, for example. Okay, collection development includes the formulation of selection criteria, planning for resource sharing, and replacement of lost and damaged items, as well as routine selection and deselection of decisions. So the collection, it's never a finished product. We work through the collection all the time, and to make the collection better, and especially to address the information needs of our patrons. So we have to take that into account. Large libraries and library systems may use an approval plan or blanket order plan to develop their collections. In Okay, in small and medium-sized libraries, collection development responsibilities are normally shared by all the librarians. And this is most of the cases if we work in smaller libraries. All of us have a say in what, how do we want to develop our collection. Of course, if you are a subject specialist in an academic library, then you have a say in your own discipline. Based on their interests and subject specializations, this is what I was just mentioning, usually under the overall guidance of a written collection policy, development policy. And of course, having a written collection development policy is very important, because the development policy is going to guide how we're going to manage and develop our collection. Okay, now what is collection management? The collection management is the application of quantitative techniques such as statistical and cost-benefit analysis to the process of collection development, usually limited to large library and library systems. So when we talk about collection management, we're talking about techniques applied to collection development. In a more general sense, the activity of planning and supervising the growth and preservation of a library's collection based on an assessment of existing strength and weaknesses and an estimate of future needs. So it's an intellectual process. Collection management is an intellectual and a planning process. It's planning for the future. So what does collection management consist of? Well, communication, coordination, policy formulation, evaluation, and planning. And of course, once we go through every process of communication, coordination, policy formulation, evaluation, and planning, those processes affect acquisition, retention, and access to information. Okay? Historical overview. Give the public what it needs, or give the public what it wants. And here we can see a change on how collection development, or collection development would be the right word to say it, has evolved through time. In the 1900s, in terms of books, we have book selection, and it's community assessment, selection policy development, and selection process. In the 1960s, we talk about collection development. So it's not anymore book selection, but collection development. And here we have development of library collections, budget management, community outreach and promotion, resource planning, and collection analysis. So now we have more elements in terms of how are we going to develop our collection. Okay. Now in the 1980s, we have acquisition. We have all of the processes before, but plus acquisition, weeding, acquiring, canceling serial, storage, preservation, promotion, marketing. And of course, if we have an outlook of the last 10 years, then we have electronic information. And that makes the collection management and collection development much more complex, because we have to take into account all the information that comes in electronic format. And what I was mentioning before, if we have the access to the internet. And what does that mean in terms of our collection development and collection management? Because we have to take into account that through the internet, we have access to many resources that we didn't have before. Okay? So in terms of our planning, we have to take that into account, because it makes a difference, especially in today's environment when we are limited by financial issues and we have budget constraints. And this is very interesting, this historical overview, because what we have in the 19th century, we have a mission of the library, and the mission was to educate the common man, educate the community and the common man. Okay? Now the mission of the 20th century, we think of the library as a community center, and only about education, which is very important and is still one of the functions of the library, but also about entertainment and other activities around the community or in the community. Okay, it's a community center. It's not only about reading books or searching in the internet or using computers. No, it's a community center where members of the community, either as a group or segmented by age or interest, meet at the library. And this is very important because we want to have the library institution as a vibrant and dynamic institution in today's environment. So now we have education, we have research, we have recreation, of course we have new media, new formats, and new missions. And each library is differently. If you are located in a small town like Clarion here, well, our free public library has a mission. If you are part of the large library system in one of the large cities in New York or Washington or Boston, then you have a different mission. But the idea is that that mission from the 19th century to the 20th century has changed. ALA Catalog of 1904. Education, the emphasis was the education of readers. And of course, that is still one of the missions, but it was the emphasis, it was the focus of collection development, I would say, till the 1950s. Or in the 60s, everything changed. But until the 1950s, that was one of the best, that was one of the focus of library collection. Education of readers, book selection by specialists and well-informed librarians. And I call this a paternalistic model. It was a paternalistic model because it was the librarian who decided what new books or how the collection was going to be developed. So it was a paternalistic model by the library, driven by the idea of educating the community and educating the user, the common man. And of course, if you know a little bit about the history of library, especially here in the US, library development goes hand by hand with the development of public education. Okay. Then we have in 1930 select the best resources and to reach patrons. Then in 1935 discover community needs. Okay, so in 1935 the idea of thinking about what the community needs, it's a very new idea. It's just beginning to develop. And we have big book selection according to those needs, and of course the idea of good books of quality. 1937 book quality. 1992 now we have public demand. So it's not anymore what they need to read, but what they want to read too. Okay, what the public wants instead of what the public needs. This is like two different paradigms in library collection development. One is we as the experts are going to provide the information to our patrons because they need that information because it's good information. And the other paradigm is that we as professional librarians, as professional information management, we're going to provide access to information that our patrons want. So two paradigms there. Of course, today I think, and this is my opinion, we are within those two paradigms. Public demand. Then by 2002 we have marketing, promotion, and we have to attract more patrons. This is another model that it's the Woodward 2005. Is you don't need no need for collection development. You have a consumer or customer driven model, and that's the bookstore model. Think about the big bookstores. Here we have a table, and we have and it's a little bit of what we have been talking about before in terms of selection and criteria of assessment. And as we can see, probably from from the beginning of the library in the 19th century till, like I said, the middle of the 20th century, the criteria was assessment, or the criteria for collection development was quality and the librarian's criteria, the expertise of the librarian. And we can see how it has changed the selection in terms of information books of literary value, books of inspiration, books of information, books of recreation, imaginative literatures, informative literature. Then we have non-fiction, fiction, and non-print, but that's late in the 20th century, I guess from the 1990s on. And then we have public demand. Here we can see how now the criteria has changed to public demand, while before it was about quality and the criteria of the librarian. Now the criteria has changed to public demand, and now we are responding to our to the community needs, to the information needs of our patron, and we still have public demand. Okay, so this is how collection development has evolved through time. In my opinion, and this is not, this is my opinion, it depends the type of library we're working on. Of course, we have school, we have academic, we have public libraries, we have specialized libraries. So collection development will be subjected to the needs of the type of library we're working in. But when we think about collection development in public libraries, I think it gets a little bit more complicated, because we have, as professionals, we have an idea of what good information is, and we like to bring that access to the community, but also we have to make sure that we are addressing the information needs of our patrons and communities. So we have to reach that balance. So we have to leave behind the paternalistic model. Okay, what we have to do in today's library, and again, and this is my opinion, we have to try to make our patrons we have to make our patrons, and this is what I wanted to say, as proficient searchers of good information as we are. Okay, so the idea is to transfer our knowledge in terms of how to search for good resources to our patrons. They have to learn how to search for their own information, and they have to learn how to assess the information that they are accessing. Okay, in terms of authority, in terms of source, and of course in terms of relevancy. So this is our function in today's environment. Deselection and evaluation. Deselection. Items that are not being used are discarded, unless of course they have a historical value or cultural value. The condition of the item, wear and tear, the currency of the item. If we have new editions, why are we going to still have the old editions? Unless they have some value. And the number of copies that we have. And another way is to evaluate with the statistics. We can have circulation rates. We have statistics on interlibrary loans. And of course, we have citation analysis. We have bibliometrics and webometrics to see what resources are being used or cite. Collection management librarians. We have different functions of the collection management librarian in acquisition, technology, and management. Of course, we have to have, if you're going to be a collection librarian, you have to have communication skills. Of course, you always have to have communication skills, but in this time, you have to be specialized. You have to talk the same language that vendors and publishers talk, because you have to understand, and they have to understand you. And you have to make sure that what you want is what your department, if you have an acquisition department, is going to acquire. If not, If you're the collection management librarian, then you have to make sure that what you acquire is what you're really looking for, because remember, the whole idea here is to what? To address the information needs of our community. Knowledge of the publishing industry. You have to know about licensing, contracts, access, etc. Especially you have to, it's like signing any contract. You have to read the fine print, the little print. In terms of technology, you have to be aware of computer systems, new technologies, new devices, new formats, new delivery, hardware, software. Now it's very common to have many books in electronic format for tablets, cell phones, etc. So you have to be aware of what the community you're serving is using. Okay. So you can offer more access in different formats. Not only the traditional book, which in my opinion will be here forever, because at least this is my personal opinion. I think books are very important in their printed format, and I think nothing replaces a book in a printed format. However, when we're looking for information, electronic information is also important, or I don't know if it's more or less important. That doesn't matter. But this is a different type of format that we have to offer to our patrons. The Kindle, the Nook, cell phones, tablets, etc., the iPad. Now people are reading in different formats, and probably the new generations are not so attached to the books, to the printed books, as we are, or as I am. Okay, so we have to be aware of that, and we have to be willing to change. We have to be aware that the new generations, our new patrons, the young adults, the children, who we want to be patrons of the library, because we want to promote our library, we want to market our library, and we have to understand that these young adults and children of today will be the ones who will make the decisions in terms of funding our library in the future. Okay, so these are our so it is important that we tend to their needs too. And probably if they don't want to read printed books anymore, that's okay. They probably want to have a tablet or a computer and read the same information, but with more color, with sound, multimedia. So there's nothing wrong with that. So we have to be aware about the new technologies. Then, of course, it's very important. The other function is management, in terms of personal budgeting, planning, and promotion, and policy. Policy is not there, but that I think that's part of management. Okay. And then from here we go to needs assessment and community analysis. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Thank you so much for listening. And please, if you have any question, or even I think I'm going to do a discussion board on today's introductory lecture. Thank you.